Welcome to Damsels in Dialogue, a podcast dedicated to female protagonists in fiction, film, and the stage. Co-hosted by Katie Zutter
and India Marie Paul. For our inaugural season, we'll be focusing on 8 animated heroines from Walt Disney feature films.
This episode, we swing into the jungles of Africa, where a woman and her father have come to study the wildlife, and instead find a man in a loincloth living among the apes. We get introduced not only to the famous Tarzan, but the equally as amazing Jane Porter. Talking about Tarzan and Jane today.
I'm so excited.
So it's a good one. It's a good one.
So good.
Just talk about the inspiration for Tarzan.
Yes.
So this is actually going to be the inspiration of the inspiration.
Oh, okay, cool.
The inspiration of Tarzan is from the book Tarzan of the Apes by Edgar Rice Burroughs. It was first published in a magazine in 1912, but then was turned into a book in 1914. Now that's the actual inspiration. But from what I can find, it's not like super conclusive that he actually did this, but it's like
he kind of maybe
pretty
did,
much you kind of know that he was inspired by an actual event.
Really?
So, yeah, in 1868, William Milden, the 14th Earl of Streatham, was shipwrecked off the African jungle coast at 11 years old.
Oh.
And 15 years later, he was found. And brought back to society to reclaim his earldom and etc. So he came back at 26. So that actual event sparked all sorts of romantic fantasies, like, you know, that not necessarily written stories, but all sorts of stories about this, this mysterious man who lived in
like
the jungle.
Wild man, yes.
Yes. Who happens to be, you know, a wealthy heir to an earldom.
Happens to be an earl, yes.
Yes.
Oh.
So there was a lot of, that was a big deal. There was a big deal that went around in that time period. It is pretty understood from what I could find that he took his inspiration from that story.
Okay. That makes sense. That's a great story.
It's very interesting that this kid survived. And I couldn't find a whole bunch on that story itself other than who he was and everything. But also that was a while ago when he was a kid. And it seemed like he wasn't super open about it. Like people were more interested about what they thought, like their own personal canons of what happened.
Them romanticizing what happened instead of like his actual journey into the jungle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very interesting. I had no idea that story existed or was based on any sort of truth. So that was kind of cool. He was possibly taken in by apes. It was all that sort of thing. So then Edgar Rice Burroughs created Tarzan of the Apes, which then inspired roughly 24 sequels.
of novels or of like novella novels? Wow.
24 stories.
That's amazing.
On top of stories that he okayed, there were stories about Jane that other people had written. It kind of became his own little franchise.
Yeah. There's so many movies of it too. Like there's just
51.
It's
51 movies. It is, fun fact, one of the most done stories in Hollywood.
It just, it keeps going. Because it came out in what? You said 1914 was the novel? Wow.
Yeah.
People like
it was
their
out
Jungle
in the world
Mans,
in 1912.
apparently.
But I mean, it was nuts. So it just blew up. And there's a bunch that we can talk about later. There's a lot of research done into it. A lot of people have really done a deep dive into, especially the first book, breaking apart things like racism and sexuality and all sorts of stuff that scholars have gone into with the story itself. But I wanted to mention some brief things about the story.
Yes.
That some have to do with Jane, but more just to see how well Disney kind of connected the story to its original inspiration. So Tarzan of the Apes, the parents were John and Alice Clayton.
Ooh.
So they still kept the name. They repurposed the name.
Yeah.
But they still kept Clayton, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
They kept the time period. However, in the original story, they gave birth to their child on the island.
Oh, okay. Instead of saving him from the fire boat.
Yes. They gave birth to their son, John Clayton II. A year later, the mom had died. And then later, the dad is killed by Kerchak, which they do keep the name as the King of the Apes is still Kerchak.
So his dad is killed by the King of the Apes.
Yes. There is no jaguar. There is no panther. There's no any sort of cat enemy that Tarzan's Disney appreciates.
Yeah.
And even in the later stuff, they keep bringing some sort of evil cats back.
Oh, yeah.
But there is not that. They still use Kerchak. They use Kala. That is the ape who takes in Tarzan. And they name him Tarzan, which in ape language means white skin.
Oh, that's less romantic than I was hoping it would be.
Yes. Yes. So it's still, they use a lot of the same names.
Is she Jane? She's still Jane in the original novel, correct?
Oh, yeah. She's still Jane Porter.
Okay.
Absolutely. Actually, Kerchak is killed before you even meet Jane. Tarzan becomes the king of the apes before Jane is even introduced.
Wow.
That's because, the first story in this very long series is very much about Tarzan. It is very much Tarzan of the apes and his story. And actually in later stories, that's when Jane becomes much more important and they are then a team.
Okay.
But in the beginning, it is very much Tarzan. So, he's a protagonist of the book, so you can't be mad at it.
Yeah.
But Kala also never meets Jane Porter.
Really?
Kala is killed before Jane is introduced.
Oof.
Yeah. And years later, after all of this craziness has happened, he's only 21. He's only 21 when he finds new marooned folk, including Jane Porter, who is 19 in the story. And he's 21. And his cousin, who he doesn't know.
Wait, his cousin is in the book?
Yep,
okay.
William Clayton. But they don't know because they don't know that they're related. Okay. And William Clayton has taken over the estate. He is now the Earl.
Okay, so it's not as if they've come to find him. They
did not come to find him.
Okay.
They have no idea who the other is.
Okay.
So that's when you meet Jane. And Tarzan saves Jane. She is very much damsel in distress in this first book. Very much damsel in distress. But something interesting that I wanted to touch on, while he's saving somebody else, another person who was also marooned, there was a whole group of people who were marooned.
Okay.
It wasn't just a couple. It was a boat of people. He went to save somebody else, a gentleman, Paul Darnot. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong.
A little French there, yeah.
Yes, he is a French naval officer. Oh. And while he's rescuing this gentleman, the rest of the group is saved. They are picked up on a boat and brought back.
Okay.
After they return and everybody's gone, Darnot says, you saved me. I will bring you back, teach you the ways of our culture, and help you reconnect with Jane, which they do. He goes back with this gentleman. He helps him learn English because he could read English at the time but could not speak it. Does the whole 9 yards. Finds her in Wisconsin, USA.
She's American in the novel.
Yes, she was found in Wisconsin, USA, where he then rescues her from a fire because she's still a damsel in distress. And oh no, she's also engaged to surprise his cousin, William Clayton.
Wait a minute. So Tarzan leaves the jungle.
Yes.
Goes to America and meets Jane?
Well, first goes with this French naval officer.
Okay.
And lives there for a bit to
learn the language.
And then he helps him find Jane, who has since moved to Wisconsin. Because what a place to live when you've been all over the world.
There's a big leap Disney made where the whole thing's in the jungle.
Not really.
Really?
We'll get there, though.
Oh, okay.
We'll get there. So, okay, so then...
I love it already. I'm so excited.
So she's engaged to William Clayton, and something that I wanted to bring up, which I think attunes to how great Tarzan is and how great Jane becomes, is during this finding Jane and discovering that she's engaged and everything, Tarzan discovers that he is actually the Clayton heir. He is the rightful Clayton heir, and he could at any point take that. He could and take it from William, and he chooses not to. The book ends with him choosing to save Jane's happiness, to not take over the earldom. He conceals it and lets them live their happy life so that Jane can be happy because he cares about her so much. That was something that I thought was very interesting.
Yeah.
And later, they do get married. They have a son named Korak. And I believe, I should have looked into this more, but I'm pretty sure they go back to the jungle at some point, and they definitely do more. They don't just settle in Wisconsin.
Jane and Tarzan have a son. Okay.
Jane and Tarzan, they end up getting married. Okay. So I'm so sorry, podcast. I love you so much, but I'm not 25 Tarzan novels in yet. So, and very much in the books, from what I saw in descriptions, is Jane Porter starts off as the damsel in distress. She starts off as this very meek and beautiful girl, which is very eye-opening for him. He has never seen a woman before. And for it to be this sweet, kind damsel, he is very taken with her. But as the stories progress, she gets more agency, and she gets to the point where she is very well educated about her surroundings and things. She also is able to handle herself in the jungle.
Nice.
So there's all these things where she does grow a lot over the course of these books.
That's
just
nice.
like Tarzan goes on his own adventures, but for the most part, he kind of stays, he has the same kind himbo energy the whole time.
Yes.
Whereas Jane really has a full arc, which is very cool.
That's
in the original
surprising
stories.
for that time period of writing, because I mean, that is the Victorian era into the Edwardian era. That would have been really popular to have damsels in distress and everything. So that's the fact that he gives her any kind of arc at all or growth. That's pretty awesome.
Right. I thought that was very interesting. So what I could see is that Disney did it as a whole. They looked through it. They really wanted to make, so slowly easing our way into inspirations that Disney specifically took to make her character, is they took that more overall arc of her character and put that into the movie as opposed to just what the first was. Also, fun fact about this animated feature is that the author, Edgar, always wanted Tarzan to be animated.
He did? Because he would have known Disney when they started in the 30s. So that would have been...
Right. I don't know if he talked about Disney specifically, but as early as 1938, he was saying that Tarzan would be best suited as an animated film. So it actually fulfilled this lifelong dream of this gentleman, and his grandson watched it and was like, yeah, he'd be proud. This was so well done.
That's so amazing, and it's true. And we'll talk a little bit about it when we get into like the movie itself. But I agree that it is done the best because of what they can do. Right.
No, they did a fantastic job. And with the movie itself and how they got the inspiration, they got her personality from the overall arc, and they also wanted to add some Jane Goodall into there as well to make her very intelligent, and Diane Fossey. So both of them were women who lived with apes and learned about them. And so they really wanted this well-rounded, intelligent character. But something that was interesting is as they were drawing her, they obviously had her personality down pat. They're like this intelligent, strong woman. But the early sketches of her, and if you look them up, they're very bland.
Yeah.
She's, in some things, she looks very, very nerdy and bookish. Some, she's not very attractive. Some, she just looks plain. She looks very plain. And they were really having a hard time with trying to get this look because they were like, we have this strong woman and we can't figure out what she looks like. So they changed her hair color. They did all sorts of things to try and remedy this, and they just couldn't until they watched Minnie Driver. And watching her, oh my gosh, yeah. And she did her research. And I also, Movie Surfers for the win, guys. Watch that episode. And they talked about Tarzan. And they interviewed her, and she referenced the silverbacks and everything. Like she definitely dove into this character. And her animating supervisor.
Oh, that was Ken Duncan, like Meg.
Yes.
It was the same.
Yes. He loved it. He sat in and watched her and was like, wow, she is so incredibly expressive in her face that they gave this person with the knowledge and the confidence of the Jane Goodall, but gave her that wide-eye wonder that would really relate to with children and give that excitement. Everybody has seen somebody talk about something they love and the way their eyes light up and the way they're so excited. And even if you don't really understand what they're talking about, you are still engaged. Like you're still like, I am with you because they love it so much. And that's kind of what she brought to Jane as a character, which then inspired her entire look and facial features.
Yeah. Like I watched an interview at the D23 Expo that they did with the 20th anniversary, I think. And Ken Duncan spoke, and he said it was one of his favorite characters he's ever done. And that Minnie did break it completely open because it was like this stiff British character. And then like, she can be funny. And then that just opens up a whole, and she's hysterical in this film. And it really, he was, like you said, he studied her poses when she was doing that. So he started he showed sketches of her in funny poses.
Oh, she thought that was great. She loved it. She was like, it was so cool to watch somebody sketch her face while she was talking.
And he said he used her face shape. Like he used Minnie Driver's face shape to start the new version that became Jane. I thought that was so cool. And that his wife was the cleanup artist on Jane, so that the actual lines you see in the movie were from his wife is just really cool. The whole family affair.
It's just great. And something to attest to him and Minnie both is that the scene where Jane comes out of the forest, she's like, Daddy, I have to tell you a story. Yeah. And there was this monkey and he took my boot. Oh, that whole montage was improvised.
Of course it was.
So she improvised the whole thing, which, was tough for him. Ken Duncan took it and did it. And it actually took 7 weeks for him to animate that one scene and took 73 feet of film.
Well, when you think about it, because I love that sequence. So I've seen that multiple times, but it's one shot. Like she is moving in one background for the entire thing.
Feet of one or 73 feet of that shot.
Yeah, like that's such a long period for an animator to have in one shot that I can't.
It is one of the longest animated scenes in history.
It's
up until that point, at least.
It's so crazy because it feels only like a couple minutes, but when you think about just really how long, like that's a one shot that he probably had so much fun doing. And it's one of my favorite character building moments because it's her just trying to summarize a really weird day.
Right. Her and her father. It's a really, something I really enjoy about this story that you don't get in other Disney films is a really strong familial relationship.
Yeah.
They are, even at the end of that long, exhausting scene, Clayton's like, do you understand what she's saying? And he's like, absolutely not. Carry on, dear. Like, he is so supportive. And they're both so insanely supportive of each other.
Just crawled around, pretending to be apes on the ground. I mean
they're amazing. They both unconditionally love and support each other.
Yep.
And never question each other. And I love that as a relationship for our female protagonists, because you don't get to see that very often. It is really nice for her character to have that.
You typically have the daughter who's fighting her father on something. It doesn't have, they can still have love and it not be, malicious or anything, but that it's usually telling them they can't do something and they do it anyway. Right.
They're fighting their father or they don't have any parents.
Or they don't have any
one
parents.
Of the two.
Yeah, it's really, those are the two plot lines.
Those are options. So this was really great. This was really, really fantastic. And a quote from Minnie Driver that I really enjoyed from this movie Surfers was that she was very fun and almost forgets she's a girl, which is almost impossible in the Victorian era.
Yes.
And I thought that was very, very accurate. And I think that stems from her and her father being so close. Her dad does not make her ever be something that she doesn't want to be. And that is really fantastic because since they've grown up together, there is no hierarchy in that family relationship. Yeah. They are both equals.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Which I think really help build her as a very strong woman who forgets she's a woman because she's never...
It's never about that.
Needed to be. No.
This movie is never about that. Even Clayton doesn't treat her any differently. She's just an explorer. He doesn't belittle her.
He thinks she's weird.
Yeah. He thinks both of them are weird. He just stares at them making
He does talk down to them a bunch though.
Well, yeah. He does. That's his character. But it's to hit her father too. So it's not.
Right. To both of them. It's
and
not,
Tarzan. It's he's just a full of itself villain.
He has his own motives.
He is.
Clayton never interrupts her during that huge montage.
But they're the comments between the men during her daddy, he took my boot scene. It's like, oh, those are the ones I bought for you. Like going back.
Right. Like, he's just so committed. He is like absolute. He's in it. The dad is in it. He knows what's happening. And Clayton is so thrown, but also can't interrupt because she is so compelling.
Yep.
He doesn't understand what she's saying.
No,
he doesn't get it. He doesn't care, but it's pulled enough that it's not worth interrupting for him, which was very cool. And then moving fully into the Tarzan itself.
Yes.
Well, actually, was there any other lead up about Jane stuff that you wanted to mention?
We can talk about Deep Canvas a little more in the after hours, but as an overview, Deep Canvas was a software created for this movie. So this was the first time Disney literally made the software to do 3D shots and mix 3D environments specifically with
Otherwise,
with the 2D
Tarzan
drawing.
would have skated right off the page, as Glenn Keane said.
It's like it really made us feel like you're in the jungle, and I can kind of talk about how it actually works in the after hours because it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
But it was this amazing new software, and that's actually going back to our last episode. Atlantis took it and pushed it way, way forward into new technologies and things. But this was the beginning of that mixture. And I think it was done really, really well. And you can see
fun as a side story through
Yes.
this to see all the CGI growing and the technology growing. But anyway, as you were saying.
With Jane, you can see it in the shot where she stands up to see all of the gorillas and the camera twirls around her. So that was one of the environments created because you can't do a 3D circular shot like that with backgrounds. You'd have to paint every single frame as a background. And that's just not how 2D typically is done. That's a lot of extra painting. But that's one of the shots I remember with her that it was involved in. Because usually it was used with Tarzan skating through the jungle. And it is skating.
Yes.
Because it's the 90s. Skateboarding.
It's skateboarding. It is Tony Hawk.
It is. And that's what, Glenn Keane's son loved skateboarding. And so he was, so you really get that feel, but it feels like the jungle version. So you're never like, oh, he is skateboarding. It's, he is tree boarding or he is tree surfing, which is really, really cool. And there's a lot of stuff with the music and the characters and Glenn Keane and Tarzan, but we'll get into that later. Let's talk about Jane. So this movie came out in 1999, correct?
Yes. Yep. And I wanted to mention something about the beginning before we get into the actual one, because there was an alternate beginning.
I love alternate beginnings. We had a fun one last episode.
Yeah. The alternate beginning actually aligned more with the book. Than the actual beginning does. In the alternate beginning, which you can watch on Disney Plus.
Oh, cool.
It is in the extras of Disney Plus, so you can watch this. It's a sketch. It's very cool. I see why they didn't include it. We'll get to that right now. So, so to relate to the book is it opens and you see their treehouse that they built, and it's just the father. The mother is gone. It is implied that the mother has died. So you already have that. Okay, you have a newborn baby. Mother is already gone, much like the book. And then the father is killed. So that it much more aligns with the book. Two things that I think are the reason why they didn't keep it is, one, there is a music box that he opens to see a picture of his wife and caress it. And that's kind of the like, she's passed kind of moment. And it's the da 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 da.
Yeah.
So which is very sweet. But I'm like, okay, I see that moment they maybe wanted to introduce that song for Kala, which does make it very important. And we love that. But the more morbid part of it is the final shot of this scene is, you have the battle of the little jump cuts of the tiger, like, rah, and then the flash of lightning, and then, which is very, how it happens in the original, or rather in the finished final version. But in this original, the final shot is the father. His arm is out. There's the picture of the family. His arm is laying in his own blood, and you see his arm pulled out of shot. With the blood dragging under his knuckles.
And this goes dark, but that's another level.
That's really, and baby is still in his little carrier. So I see why they changed it. That was a little dark.
And I thought they were dark enough with the blood when you see his parents dead when Kala comes in, which is a whole other thing. And then the ending, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but that, with the shadow. So I think they were like, we have gone too far. Yeah, this is too much.
Yes. So I just wanted to,
in the first 7 minutes of this film, the baby gorilla dies, the parents die, and then you have a near-death experience with the baby Tarzan and Kala. Action-packed 7 minutes of this film. It's insane. I actually stopped it and I went, how many minutes are we in on this? Because so much has happened. It's so good. And they get a whole backstory in. The flashes between the two families are beautifully done. Yeah. It's a pretty killer opening. So I'm glad they went with a slightly less morbid.
A little scary. scary, but that was something that called back to the original story, which was interesting. And something that we've kind of noticed, and this is kind of on our fault because we're picking women who are not the main characters of these stories.
It's like, halfway through the movie.
Exactly, halfway through the movie. Now we get to Jane.
Yes. So much happens.
Do you want to talk about how we meet Jane?
Yes, because this is her entrance is brilliant because it just completely introduces her as a comedic character, and before this you don't really get a comedic character, and comedy is different than sassy because you have Meg before this, but everyone else is very princessy or the stereotypical kind and gentle, and she is all those things, but she just is in the jungle, her hat's all sideways, she's trying to push her way through bamboo, gets flung back, like she's this very awkward woman, and you already get the contrast of her being in a bustle and in the middle of the jungle. So you have this like corset, horrible clothing, beautiful but horrible to wear in the jungle of Africa. So you already get this really humorous contrast. I will say that Ken Duncan said that the hat was horrible to animate. It was just a pain to animate in this movie. And he did talk a lot about her clothing transition. So this is kind of an overall thought, but they really did a wonderful job telling her story through her clothing, because she starts in that corset and bustle, and then immediately after meeting Tarzan, she's in a button-up shirt and skirt. And then the first time Tarzan takes her into the jungle with the birds, she's in a tank top and wrap skirt. So you see her slowly become more influenced by the jungle and let free.
Yeah.
And her hair comes, you see her entire look actually morph her arc, which is just really good storytelling.
And I love that they called to it at the beginning because, and you notice it more when you meet her friends in a different setting, but her hair is not perfect. Even when it's up in the updo, she has big chunks hanging down by her face. So you already, when you meet her, it's like, okay, she's in this, she's doing her best to be prim and proper, but that's not really where she is most comfortable. So I loved that arc. Yeah. Visually, it was really cool.
It's really well done. And so you get the immediate introduction to her as being a comedic woman who's still very proper but is
very intelligent, all of those things.
She has a reality to her of the situation, almost similar. So she gets introduced, gets flung back by bamboo. Is a beautiful sketch artist, which we figure out right away. She just sketched that baby baboon in like 2 seconds. It's beautiful. So we already know that she's talented. She has an intelligence to her, that she's adventurous because she's in the jungle with her father. And then we have her talking to the little monkey baboon.
Like tricking it to get
tricky like a person. She completely humanizes the animals in the way that we already have in the movie. But she never gets to hear them talk, which is really cool. So there's that reality too. But she treats this little guy like a child, tricks it cries, and then tries to reason with the parents, and does become a damsel in distress.
Oh yes,
but she's in the jungle. Like
she's out of her element.
I never felt like it was, I have no strength, I'm not a capable or resourceful person. It was just a reality of being chased by a herd of baboons in the in the jungle. So she has an entire scene of screaming, starts flying. I love that she believes that she's flying for a hot second before she sees I'm flying, and then sees Tarzan, screams again because there's a guy in the tiniest outfit. I thought Hercules was bad, but the tiniest outfit in a Disney movie ever. It's completely legitimate, and she does knock a whole bunch out with her umbrella. So you have that fun resourcefulness and this comedic chase scene. It's hysterical, and it's so dramatic at the same time, and it's just a great introduction to who she is. All in one, that she is resourceful, but she is responding to the reality that's happening. And you do get the damsel in distress aspect, but in a very modern way, and a very I would scream. I'm a resourceful human being, but I wouldn't know what to do with that. So you really get the element of her being out of her comfort zone.
Being in distress, I don't think is a negative thing.
Yeah.
Especially like in cases where we know in other situations, Tarzan's in distress and she helps. And same with the father. There's times where she's in distress and father helps her and she helps father. And like, the distress is fine. I think it's how the stereotype of the damsel in distress. I like that they flipped it a little.
And they still let her be. Like, Meg was very against it when, like, so you had the sassy lines of like, I'm a damsel in distress, I can handle it. But this one, you allow her to do it. And you do allow Tarzan to be this like heroic, romantic character.
But it's so nice. She's allowed to be feminine. He's allowed to be masculine.
And then she has this moment that reminded me of Flynn with the hair glow when she's like, I'm in a tree with a man who talks to monkeys and tries to escape away. And I'm like, oh, it's like her hair glows. I'm like, it's that real reaction to the magic of this world.
Right.
It's just so endearing. I love it so much.
I love her agency when you meet him as well. And we will talk definitely a lot about Tarzan, a lot more about him in the after hours, because I think this is a great family unit that it becomes. I think the family unit of Tarzan and her father and her are just a phenomenal support. And I think how close her father and her relationship is, and how she, bringing back to Minnie's comment about how she forgets she's a woman. I think that really harks to when she is, and it really shows rather, when she is first interacting with Tarzan. And Tarzan is truly just being interested, and not an inappropriate interested, a curious.
Yeah.
He's like, I have never seen something like you before, where he like pulls off the glove to see the hands and like smelling her and everything. It's very much like a dog taking in his surroundings. Like, it's very logical. And going off of to get to Jane is that she has so much agency. Traditionally in the Victorian era, you would not be doing that kind of stuff to a man, but she almost has that more male ideology when she pushes him away multiple times.
Kicks him in the face. She just straight up kicks him in the face and that's what, if you look at what actions happen, so he tries to lift up her dress and she kicks him in the face. He doesn't try to do that again. But what makes it less creepy, because there still is an aspect of he's, touching her feet and he's like coming up to her and he does put his head on her chest. His intentions.
You totally see why she's feeling uncomfortable.
Oh, I would be terrified. So like her like trying to be like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Is completely legitimate. And I can't imagine how terrified I would be if there's this random guy wearing a loincloth, which is also not appropriate.
Huge guy in
a loincloth.
Gentleman.
Just flung around the jungle on vines and is now like touching it because, she's backed up against a tree. So that is a terrifying situation. What makes it less creepy for the viewer is that that Tarzan has absolutely no idea what is happening or who she is and is just discovering that there's another person like him. So there's nothing sexual about it. There's nothing even romanticized in that scene because it is very comedic and she does kick him in the face and tell him like, stay back, personal boundaries. And he doesn't listen. So that's one thing, but he also doesn't understand what she's saying. So there's that balance that in our time period, I could see how some people might try and pick it apart as something that is weird. But I think what saves it is his intention.
Also how she reacts to it.
Yeah.
She doesn't become a damsel in distress and let him do whatever she wants to her. She, regardless of intentions, she very much states the boundaries immediately of what she said is okay and not okay.
Yeah. Well, and
very comedically, but
he grabs her face and puts listens to, and we know that it's the heartbit thing, so it's so sweet.
Of course.
But the reality of her listening to his heart, oh, very nice. I don't. Okay.
Right. But for her to have that agency to be able to be like, no,
to kick him in the face
is very strong.
To tell him no,
very strong.
Yeah. Elba goes to slap him when he grabs it. She says, "How dare you?" and then stops, and then that's when the beautiful hand moment happens.
Yeah, he stops her for that. She definitely was fully committed to hit him with her hand.
Yep. And
which is also fine too. I think that's really cool and very, very modern for that time period.
Yeah, it definitely didn't feel like a Victorian woman. No. It felt like a modern woman. And there's a lot of not a lot. There was a few female explorers in that time period too, which was really fascinating. And it's really cool because they were breaking the mold. And he was writing, if he released it in 1914, this would have been during he would have been writing.
It was 1912.
Yeah, he would have been writing during the women's suffragette movement.
Yeah.
And is he an English writer, but he put her as an American?
He was born in Chicago.
Really?
Yep. He lived in Oak Park and then traveled all over the United States.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so it would have been during the American suffragette movement is when he was writing, which is really kind of cool and fascinating. But she starts having this agency too when she tries to escape the tree after, when he's talking to the baboon trying to get the thing back and then takes the sketch gift.
She's like, I'm looking out here.
Yeah, I can do this. I can do this. It's like stuck between the two, probably 30 feet up in the air, like trying to escape. Like, that's bold. I don't.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I love that. You love that for her. And you feel, I think she's such a great role model to kids because she is so willing to just take matters into her own hands and just try.
Yeah.
She may not always succeed.
No.
But she does try. And I think that is really cool for people to look up to. Because even like Clayton, who is a very masculine man in this, does not try at all for anything. He's like, I am here for one thing and you cannot tell me otherwise.
Yes. Yeah. And the romance in this is so innocent. You really see them growing. And that's the Strangers Like Me montage is just, I jumped a little bit, but it's so
Oh, you're fine. It's
beautiful because you see them both. Her attraction starts when she's drawing on the blackboard.
Right. and that's something new too, is that you see she falls in love with him first and knows. I mean, they both fall in love with each other. Yeah. But she knows what it is. She understands what is happening and he doesn't. So it's also making her incredibly modern. And in this, she is, I think Disney made her older.
I think so too.
But that was interesting too. Anyway, continuing with their innocent romance.
It's a very innocent, and you see him start to have those feelings during the Strangers Like Me montage, and they synced up the lyrics just so beautifully with this amazing album. I think he says the growing need to be beside her in it, and that's when you have Tarzan being forced to look at a picture, but his eyes are like on her, and so you see his start, but he doesn't really understand it. In the most beautiful part that I never realized happened was when they tangle up in the vines because she's learning how to swing, because he's teaching her stuff, she's teaching him stuff. You see Tarzan experience things that is beautiful. So there's no tension at all.
No.
You see her kind of falling for him when they tangle up in the vines, and she goes like red, like she starts blushing.
She fully understands what's happening.
She fully blushes when they wind up. And I actually watched him this time. I've watched it so many times, but he looked at her like, what is that expression? Like he had this question on his face because he didn't understand why she was bashful. And I'm like, well, that's just absolutely charming.
Because he's so confident in a lot of his choices. So I love that.
It's so beautiful.
I did just a quick Google. Jane is in her early 20s and Tarzan is 18.
That's what I thought. He was 18, which is so young. And they did try to find a man's voice for this movie. That is something that they talked about in the D23 expos. They wanted, instead of like Hercules and some of the past heroes and Aladdin have sounded really young, they wanted a man's voice. That's really interesting that they made him 18.
And younger than her, which it does show that she is more mature, but also she's more worldly because she's been around. She's grown up with this father teaching her
everything.
Like he's so knowledgeable. Yeah. And quirky and fun. And you can see where he's allowed her to truly explore life and go with her. Yeah.
It makes the joke, Daddy, stop it, when he's like, should I leave you alone with the blackboard for a moment? Like that. It feels like an adult parent relationship. Yeah. Which is really nice.
They've gotten past the point of I need to parent you. And they're now like slowly they're to that point where they can be friends. Yeah. Which does, I feel like, happen later in your 20s when
you can make those more adult jokes. Like, it's not about like, oh, he's cute. Should I leave you alone? Which is like, so good.
It's great. It's great. I keep bringing up the dad, but I think it's so important to have those strong family ties. And it was so great to see that because it really helps Jane be this strong, independent woman. And she's allowed to grow and thrive and have these moments where she forgets she's a woman.
Yeah. She's just a person. Awesome. What a concept. She's just a person in the jungle.
And still feminine. I think that's cool too, is that she's still given the femininity of her talking about things that she did in England when she's teaching Tarzan things, and her and them insisting on having their tea in their fancy teacups and everything. Like they still, you know.
Yeah, I loved when this was right before Tarzan and her have this montage and everything. But before she even recaps is when she and Tarzan return to the camp and the whole place is trashed. You know, because you have the song put in strictly for children, which is trashing, which I love. But
actually, it was put in because Rosie O'Donnell, in her contract, required a song. I was going to say that in the after hours, but surprise,
that's a great fun fact. I'm sorry it's for this, but no, it's great. Everyone should know that. Because her and Glenn Close are the only people who sing in this, but they trash the camp, and she comes back, is not mad at all, and just jaw dropped. Like she's drawn with her jaw dropped looking at Turk. And it's so beautiful. Almost gets killed again by Kerchak. And then has her beautiful thing. And then you get the montage of them falling in love. He tries to bring her flowers. It's just, that's so sweet.
And what's such a bummer in this film is it unfortunately does not pass the Bechdel test in traditional terms because there are no other human women for her to speak to.
Yeah.
However, I did want to touch on the female relationships in this because you also have Kala, who's incredibly, she is so strong to stand up to Kerchak.
Doesn't flinch.
When literally everyone is telling her to like not.
Yeah.
And she's like, absolutely not. And you can tell that his whole life, she's been fighting Kerchak to keep Tarzan. Like his whole life.
Yep.
That relationship is so cool. And what it really lends to when she is introduced to Jane. And she's scared at first, understandably so. But she is one of the first to come around.
He introduces Jane to his mom.
It's such a sweet moment. And it's so beautiful when, you know, Kala does understand how important Jane is and kind of sees Jane for who she is way before anybody else does. And so it makes that moment where Jane goes and saves Kala later really, really powerful because you're like, these are two women who at this point, this was not the turning point for them. They already understood each other and knew how important they were to this man they both loved. And so I thought that was very cool. So their relationship is beautiful. I think Kala is a very well done character as well. And going to the friend,
Turk.
Turk is never jealous of Jane. And that is something that is very refreshing. You do not see that very often. Many movies past, any female friend or even not female friend in Pegasus, like they are incredibly jealous of this new woman. Whereas Turk is more like, this is kind of dangerous. This is
not a good idea.
What are you doing?
Like, and is more upset that Tarzan, you have the Tarzan's not spending time with them aspect. But also I spent most of my life, when I was a kid, thinking that Turk was a guy. Because it's played so androgynous. And
I completely forgot that he was played by Rosie O'Donnell. I had no idea. I told Josh and he was like, yeah, no, that was like a big thing. Like that was a big deal. Like everyone was really. And then when I looked it up, I'm like, oh yeah, they like based Turk's look and hair off of Rosie O'Donnell. I'm like, well, I'm a fool. But yes, I agree. I also thought that Turk was
I did. And then when I re-listened to it, they say Turkina, I think is her full name in it.
Yeah.
But you also have a male-female friendship that is so platonic. Just so platonic. Even if it's in like different species, like there's just nothing but.
And there is never a question between the two that they are.
Like it is just so like platonic. Annoying siblings. Like they're really siblings in it, which is really fun. And knowing that it's also a female character played very androgynous, because I thought it was a guy for most of it. And then when you realize it's a girl, very tomboyish. Which is cool.
Oh, she's so fun. Turk is a blast. You love Turk.
You have the wonderful son-mother relationship in it with Kala and Tarzan. And it has some great messages about family in there. And then the whole harems relationship with Tarzan and Turk going in and wrestling around. Like you do have female relationships in it. It's just not human. And Jane can't talk to them, so you can't even claim that she can talk to them.
I know, and it's so tough, but you know there's moments. So it's tough that it does not pass the Bechdel test, but you do see those moments
of
in the first movie of connection and understanding. And I really love how the female relationships are portrayed, even though they cannot speak to each other, which in Tarzan and Jane,
if
you don't mind moving on to that, it's all flipped on its head because she can just understand everything Turk says all the time.
Yep, all the time. She just learns, she speaks fluent ape.
Yes.
Right before we jump completely to Tarzan and Jane, there's a couple other moments of Jane agency that fights against damsels in distress. And she rushes the shotgun when Clayton goes to shoot Tarzan. When he first hops in, and she's like, see, he's here, he's real. And then just rushes the shotgun and pushes it away as it's firing. So
she knows exactly the dangers of that.
Of what it means to rush a shotgun. Like, she does it a couple times. She also tries to fight the shotgun away from Clayton. I mean, she's unsuccessful, but, you know, she can't be also the warrior woman and the artist. And
she's a third of the size of Clayton. Yeah. So that's one of those things where it would be unbelievable if she was able to wrestle it out of his arms.
So she's not Kirakakash. She's not a warrior woman. She's a brainy, artistic, wonderful character, but she still tries. She still tries to be resourceful and helpful. So she rushes the shotgun. She swings it on a vine and knocks a guy away from Kala to open it. So she gets saved, but she also helps save Tarzan from different things. So she has the agency and the gumption, I guess would be the word, to do whatever she can, even if she's not a physically strong character. So I think that's also a great side to show in a female character too. She's never helpless. She's just in situations that she needs help with, I guess.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. The kiss too. You have her really wanting to stay. She goes off and cries, which is completely justified because she's completely torn about what to do. Yeah. And then her dad says, but you love him. Which is, great dad. Great dad.
And then he goes with her. What a supportive father! We love to see it!
It's so good. And the least romantic jump off a boat ever with the skirts floating up. It's just like, wow.
I kind of loved the kiss when it was that moment of her like,
she tackles him,
choosing him.
She tackles
He's
him.
So overwhelmed he doesn't know what's happening.
Doesn't know what a kiss is. So she tackles him, kisses him, embarrassed, and then he's like, wait, what is this? And then kisses her and this like,
can we try again?
Yes, it was beautiful. But so her also awkward jump off the boat with this billowing skirt, straight up tackles him onto the ground after trying to give him a handshake, not even a hug to say goodbye, which is so British. And
yes, she was very much like, I am putting distance between us. Yep. We will do this. He has no idea.
Yeah. And then they have the wonderful sequence where she's a master surfer of the jungle as well.
Yeah.
And that kind of rounds out.
See them grow together.
It's beautiful. And then it was so successful that they had a television show, which you can't stream, which is really unfortunate. I found a couple on YouTube for The Legend of Tarzan, but it was in 2001 to 2003. And
Disney's pretty much written it off. It's not.
Yeah, I think it probably hasn't been digitized yet. So they're like, I'm not going to pay to digitize it or something like that. It's right. It doesn't make sense that it doesn't exist because it's cute from the few that I watched. And that's where the Tarzan and Jane movie that you can stream comes from.
And that I thought was done way better than things like Atlantis and other ones because they made a through plot, which was fun. You still had the typical like they backtracked on some of the character progression and like made things more exciting because it's a TV show, made it spicy. But that happens in everything. But overall, I think it was
really cute,
better done. It also called back to the rest of the novels.
It makes sense to have a TV show of something that had 24, 25 adventures already. Right. That makes total sense.
Yeah, and I like that they called it out at the beginning of the movie. They do say these are based on the stories by Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Yeah.
Although the downer of it is the quality was significantly lower.
Yeah.
Quality was pretty low to the point where some of the characters didn't look like themselves.
I agree. And the voice actors didn't come back for it.
None of the voice actors came back.
It was so sad.
That was tough.
I'd be up for a reboot of a series with them.
Oh, yeah.
Because what I do think they did well in the Tarzan and Jane and the couple episodes of the series I found was they're really focusing on them continuing to learn about each other and figure out how to mix their two vastly different, because they use the Two Worlds, One Family theme song, and it just is about them.
They have her sing part of it. They really come together.
Yeah, so you have these two people who love each other but are from vastly different worlds trying to figure out how to cohabitate and work and continue to learn about each other. And they do communicate, even though his English is still broken, they communicate with each other about their feelings a lot.
Right. I love that they chose the story of it's been their year anniversary.
That was so cute. Yeah, that's a good
I love that
line.
That's the story they picked.
Yeah, because it's about 3 episodes. So clever. Ish.
Yep. Yeah. It was 3 episodes. You have one episode where they meet her friends, which was very cool.
Episode.
That was so fun because you got to see the difference between Jane and how she grew up. You got to see how, because they were pretty modern as well. Yeah. They were definitely more traditional, but they were modern in that, like, 3 uppity women would not have traveled to the forest. Like, they clearly just love her.
Yeah.
Jane is their 4th pea in their pod, and they love her, and it's very much kind of like, okay, until next time when we visit again.
Yep.
We'll bring better shoes next time. Like, kind of, like that kind of idea. They still are not down for staying there.
No.
But you have those moments of her showing them, like when she goes to the picnic spot. They're not thrilled with walking through the forest. She must be absolutely foolish for staying here outside of the hunky man.
Yep.
Right. I love the moment at the end where Jane goes to grab, because he's in danger.
Yep.
He's fighting the
panther.
Stereotypical TV show. Now it's still 2 big cats.
2 big cats.
But now there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
That are, of course, named. And Tarzan's attacking them and trying to save the girls. And the girls are to safety now. And and he's in trouble, and Jane goes to swing down to help. And the friend goes, she literally screams, "No, try this instead." Like, it's not to stop her. It's like, use this vine instead. It's
better.
Bigger, it's thicker. Go get him. Like, so you can see that this is the moment where the girls are like,
she's
go
got
get
this.
your man, girl. We see it. We see.
And then she goes in with no plan, which is always really funny. Pulls on the panther's tail. And I just wrote down, like, what were you going to do next? Like, what was the actual plan? You
hope that Tarzan can do the rest.
Like, you pull on his tail, distract the panther, and you do end up, like, they work together to get the panthers, but it was that moment of, like, she just goes in to try and do anything. So that was really cute, and you get to see that one passes the Bechdel test.
They have multiple conversations, not just about Tarzan.
Oh, yeah, about their life in the jungle and what she's doing, and you get to learn that they used to throw great garden parties back at home. So the whole thing kind of rounds out characters in a fun way.
Yeah.
And I do think they wrote it really well. So I would have loved to have heard the original cast do it, because I think it would have just been really fun. But I did think it was well done, which I wasn't ready for. I was happily surprised.
No,
by
especially after watching the Atlantis one. I'm like, oh, this is another one of those compilations. It's going to be weird. But no, the through line was really beautiful, and it was really cool to watch them grow. There was some character building. Like I said, it did cut back on some. Like all of a sudden, he is a full ape again. Like 100% ape, which was kind of weird. And she was like less of a jungle lady. But of course, they do that to make it a little spicy for the TV show.
Yeah.
So that didn't bother me as much because I could forgive it. But I really enjoyed how they strung it together. And that end montage where that end party of them coming together, and she's fully committed. She walks up to that door and goes, "Happy anniversary, Jane," as if that's all she's going to get. And she wanted desperately to have this moment with Tarzan,
but doesn't want him to feel bad. So like there's the inner conflict of like, how my tradition is this, but he doesn't know this tradition. So,
and then for her to walk in that room and have it be both of them together.
Yeah.
Him with a suit on, but then they have all of the fruit and the fun, and they have all the monkeys and everybody's there. Like, it's still very much his world combined with her world, and them trying to build this life together, which is very great. That concept is awesome.
It's really cool. And that's why I think I really enjoyed it in the few episodes I saw of the series, because it is them negotiating it. They love each other. That's never questioned. Tarzan kind of learns about what it is to be a little jealous, even though his instincts are right on. The pilot
his instincts are right. But he doesn't know what jealousy is.
Yeah.
So he's confused about what his feelings are, which is great. I appreciated a big, strong man going through that kind of stuff too.
The overarching plot is that It's their anniversary. She wants to do traditional things, and they go through vignettes of things that
have happened in the past.
Yeah, that have gone poorly to try and do stuff
in the past year.
Yeah, which is the friends coming over, so throwing a party isn't right. And then the second one is getting her a diamond, and there's these diamond kind of thief ruffian people who come, and Tarzan gets tricked by them, and Jane saves him in that one, which I thought was really cool. And watching him try and lie to her was really funny, because it hit me that, he probably has never had to lie.
No.
in his jungle time.
No, because his family and they're all so open.
Yeah.
Turk does all the lying for him.
Yes, that's very true.
Turk is the one who goes, I'm just kidding, everything's fine.
Yeah. Yep. That was really cute in the second one, that he's trying to do stuff for her strictly because it would make her happy. So like you see them trying to do stuff for each other and not change, but learn.
Furthering her agency, where she meets that guy who you find out later that there is a trading post, which this does harken back to the books. You learn over the course of the books of different peoples come and settle nearby and things like that. Okay. So that loosely checks out. But she goes to this trading post to look for him. And this guy is like really inappropriate to her. And she's like, absolutely not.
Not having it.
Nope.
Shut down. Yep.
Which is great.
She's very much a part of the saving, a part of the adventures. And I was thinking, so this is another one of Disney's adventure movies, because you had the fairy tale movie. So this is Tarzan, and all of the following are adventure movies. But the adventure is really started by Jane and her father. The adventure isn't necessarily Tarzan, because he's just living his life. The adventure is actually the exploration that Jane and her father are on. So they're the catalyst of this movie. Tarzan's really interesting, but if they don't come...
Oh, of course.
If they don't come to start this understanding that they're other humans, the story wouldn't happen.
Which is very different than the original, which is very cool because it gives Jane much more importance and a bigger hand in this. In the books, he discovers his family's cabin.
Oh, okay.
And so he discovers the cabin and starts to learn to read through books and primary books and things there. Okay. So he's already started to learn about his past and his birth parents and family before Jane's even there. Like he can already read English. He just can't speak it, having never heard it before.
And they did a good job with his language in this.
Yes.
It is a little bit of suspending disbelief how quickly it happens. Do we know?
But that's how it is done in all past books and stories.
It's true.
All the past movies. It's all done as him being a very, very intelligent person and very good at mimicry. So you can see cuts of opening scenes that are all very similar of Jane saying, me, Jane, and him going, me, Jane. No. He, I'm, she, no, me, she. No, like that scene has been copy and pasted into all the things, which I think is a very endearing moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, you are suspending your disbelief that he catches on that quickly.
And they did keep the Tarzan call. That is the traditional Tarzan call. I did watch in the D23 Expo that Disney wanted them to create their own version of the Tarzan yell. And they tried a couple things because they wanted to get it. And they were like, no, we're just going to do the original Tarzan call, which I think is great because it does kind of put it in this world of Tarzan remakes and movies.
Right. No,
Janice is such a good character, and she's complete. She has a good relationship with her father. I wish I knew more about her mom. I feel like
there's nothing really said about her mom in the movie at all, and even my brief synopsis of the books, they didn't really
go into it. Was her mom not part of the picture in the novels either? It was just her and her dad?
Not that I could see. Well, her dad, I don't even know. Like in the synopsis I could find, there was no dad. Yeah. She was traveling with her soon-to-be fiance. Yeah. But it wasn't about Jane. At that point in the early on, she was very much that damsel in distress. On a final fun fact, if you will.
Yes, final fun
Jane
fact.
and Tarzan, the Tarzan books were banned for a while. Yes. For lack of evidence that Tarzan and Jane were officially married before settling down.
Scandalous. Those scandalous jungle-living people.
Not enough evidence that they were actually married before settling down.
Wow. That's so...
Not anything else. Nothing.
Great. Oh, what? Ugh. That's... Of all the things, really, to have like the two people in love be like,
the time period, man.
Banned. I don't know, this ape guy, no problem with him being an ape guy, just you didn't go to a church and get married.
Oh, man.
Where are they going to get a preacher? Well, I guess in the novel, they were in America. So that's a little different than the Disney version. But
right.
Yeah.
Still, Disney version, I think they nailed it. I really liked how they did it.
And she's so funny. And it's so fun to see a comedic heroine who is not an idiot. Like she's not evil, because there's some sassy, fun heroines before this, and there's some like really cynical ones, which are great. But to just be kind and awkward, but extremely comedic, she's just great. Minnie Driver did so good with her. And it did become a Broadway musical that didn't really succeed. And I think it's because it works the best as an animated feature.
This was a fantastic medium to have it in.
Because, the apes can actually have full expression. You can have an intimate relationship. And the way you can draw Tarzan, his physicality is phenomenal in this movie. And Glenn Keane just does, I think it's one of his best, is Tarzan. And a physical actor can't do it. Like it's not that they aren't talented.
It's not their fault.
They just physically can't have their hands like they can't walk on their knuckles in the same way. Jack their knuckles up in prep for the show. It just isn't possible. They made him very ape-like, and I've been watching like his hand movements were always kind of curled and were just beautifully done. And then you pair this sweet kind of simple person with this intelligent crackerjack of a female character. I just love it. It was such a good movie, and it was beautiful. The colors were just gorgeous in this film. It felt really bold and organic, and I love that. I love it. That was a good pick. I was very excited to rewatch this movie.
Yeah. Thanks for jumping along with us. I think Jane is outside of that Bechdel test, which is really gonna maybe bite her in the butt in the end. Yeah. But other than that, I think she is a contender.
Yeah, she'll be a contender for Maiden Madness, and it depends on what first round she gets up with, because the Bechdel test will be tough, and we'll release our rubric so you can all follow along. But yeah, fun. Thanks to everyone for joining us on this episode with Jane Porter. We hope to have you hear us again. I was going to say talk to you again, but that doesn't make any sense.
See you next time.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Damsels in Dialogue. Tune in next week as we tackle one of Disney's biggest franchises involving two sisters and an icy secret. Join us for our final Disney heroine deep dive of the season and learn more about Arendelle's heirs, Anna and Elsa.
If you enjoyed listening today, we'd love to have you subscribe to this podcast, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and share with friends.
If you really enjoyed our discussion, you can find more behind-the-scenes content, a peek at our research notes, and even entire bonus episodes on Patreon. Each month, we release a full after-hours episode where we discuss the movies we cover in each episode, unfiltered and unrestrained, along with behind-the-scenes, extras, and notes.
You can reach us on social media. Links to all our platforms can be found in our bio. On those platforms, you will find information about our upcoming season finale special, Maiden Madness, where we randomly place over 30 Disney animated heroines in a March Madness-style tournament to discover who is the top Disney animated heroine.
Brackets and more information will be released on our social media, so get your brackets filled out today and let us know who you think will emerge as champion.
Until next time, this has been Damsels in Dialogue.
Have a nice day.
This podcast is sponsored by Royal Princess Parties, LLC, and is produced by Hello Out There Audio, part of Hello Out There Productions.